Okay. You know, we as men, we get upset because we feel like y'all not listening. Okay. And some of you guys say we are listening. What are you talking about? And both sides are correct. It's more so an issue of when you start to hear me. Okay. When it's no longer, well, I'm going to debate you just because, and we're going to go back and forth because it's good fun. Okay, I'm talking about when it's like you actually hear me, you actually feel what I'm saying, and it's no longer a issue of, well, this, that, and the third, and I'm right and you're wrong. And this happens when there's a spirit of finalization. Okay, I compare it to a couple who's getting in the process of getting divorced. And they're getting a divorce because they're not listening to each other, not working together. And everything is finalized. They've signed all the documents. The assets have been split up. It's already set in stone who's going to get the car in the home, and visitation. And they get to that point, and now all of a sudden they want to listen to each other. They want to work things out. But there's already been a spirit of finalization. Things have already been done, and they can't be undone. Okay? It's great that, they're willing to listen to each other, or whatever side wasn't listening is now listening, but things are already in motion. And that's how I feel. That's how black men feel. It's bittersweet, really, because, a lot of brothers stick around because they're actually trying to communicate before that spirit of finalization, because we know what's going to happen. Like I said before, the black men that are off and they're married to the non-black girl and they're doing the whole suburb life, they didn't wake up and choose to do it. It's a slow, gradual process. And I can't, reinforce that, anymore. It is a slow, tedious process, and he's constantly, reevaluating what's going on. And he's like, man, let me kind of stretch this, maybe that right sister will come by and move on. Like I said before, I'm not trying to, offend any non-black girl who may be listening, but for the most part, if a sister who's on point, okay, shows up in a brother's life and he's dating a non-black girl, I can almost guarantee you that he would probably jump ship, in an instant, in a heartbeat. Right, because there's just too much connection there. It's the truth, right? So like I said, there's a lot of brothers who's like, let me hang out for a little bit, let's see what's going on. But after some time, you get to that point where it's just like, I don't see it working. So you actually move on and you begin the finalization process. Oh, we're engaged, and we may be moving in together. We're getting married, we're having kids. And, once we get to this point, then it's the whole, well, what's going on? What do you have to say? Right? And like I said before, if she was just my girlfriend, I would probably end the relationship and, try to work something out with you. But I'm already at the point where, we're forming a family. So we're a step above the whole, we're just dating. Now we're actually forming the whole family thing, and that includes, maybe moving in together and, catering our lives to kind of like, a fit where we're trying to go. And it's like, once we get to this point, there really is no turning back. Right? What upsets me is the women want to say, I don't need you. And then we say, okay, whatever, I'm going to go off. Right? And get the white chick. And then it's like, okay, I'm done playing. And then y'all expect us to say, okay, Becky, peace out. I'm going to go back to Tamika. And that's the game, but it's not what's going on. Right? Like I said, brothers may play that game for a little bit, or even, when it's just in terms of, dating. But after a while, when it's on some like, man, I'm tired of playing this game, I'm trying to move on, it's a wrap. Right? That's the part that really pisses me off. It's like, why is it that right when, you know, the black dude is in the position to actually leave, and he already has stuff set up. The house is packed up. He's already bought his, you know, plane ticket. He starts his new job in his new area on Monday. That all of a sudden it's on some okay. All right. Right, you know, I'll do what you want. And at the end of the day, it's one of those, thank you, but I still got to keep on moving. Right? It kind of reminds me of this episode of Martin. And I was a big Martin fan growing up. Thursday nights, 8 o'clock. What came on next? 8:30, Living Single, then New York Undercover. I was a big Martin fan. Anyways, there was an episode. It was like a 3-part miniseries where, or was it that? No, I wasn't part of that one. No, never mind. But there was an episode where Martin and Gina weren't getting along, and Gina was gonna take a job in New York, and she was all packed up, ready to move out there. And it was based off of the whole, when are you going to marry me? And I remember Martin comes through, and she's all packed up. She's pretty much, you know, just doing the final little, you know, turning off the lights and whatnot. And Martin comes in and is like, damn, Gina, okay, I will marry you. Like, you got what you wanted. And she said, thank you. But she still walked out. Okay? And Martin had to wake up because, you know, she was done. She was literally done. She packed up all her stuff, and I believe she actually moved to New York. Right? You know, she actually left. And, you know, Martin was like, damn. Now, luckily, obviously, he still got her back and they ended up getting married. But the whole point is, if that was in real life, you know, he would have missed out. She's already moved on in that next direction. Right? You know, she's already closed that chapter. And quite frankly, too many things are going on for her to just go back. Even if she wanted to go back, it's impossible. And I don't think a lot of black women understand that. Okay? You just don't wake up one day and say, I'm gonna, you know, marry you and have kids with you. It's a process that you have to grow into. And you reach little points here and there where it's literally, I can't really go back. Right? I took this job because we're moving in this direction. I can't just undo that choice and go back to my old job, right? Or, you know, I chose to move to this location because it's closer to where you live. I just can't, you know, return my home and get my own home back, right? You know, it doesn't work like that. It's not like you're dealing with Microsoft Word, you know, edit, undo, or whatever. You know, it's not like that, right? But for a lot of women, like I said, y'all caught up in this game. And once the spirit of finality starts to hit the tone, you guys want to stop playing. Then you want to get serious and, you know, really, you know, look inside in terms of what you're doing. Okay. But too much has already been done. Like I said, it's a bittersweet moment. And that's why I don't think a lot of black women understand. You know, I'm not trying to say that, you know, we're not happy married to other women. You know, I'm not trying to insult anybody who's in any sort of interracial marriage, but I'm saying it's bittersweet because yes, I'm happy with what I'm doing because I had to think about it, but I know how things could have been if you would have listened, you know, before things were final, before I set the ball in motion. And I know what I would sacrifice. I know what what I would have done, you know, in terms of letting go of an old relationship. You know, I told y'all, last chick I was talking to, she was a great person. She was a great person. I don't want to say she was wifey material, but she was definitely somebody worth getting into a serious relationship with. But a part of me just couldn't do it. Right? You know, will that come back and bite me in the ass later on? Probably, because I know that she's in a happy relationship now. Because we talk every now and then, and I know that, damn, you know, that could have been me. Right? It wasn't even on some I was slipping and I underestimated her. I just knew that getting involved with her would literally be part of that finalization process. okay? Because she was at a point in her life and I was at a point in my life where we could actually make that next step, right? If that same situation comes up again, will I pass up on it? Probably not, right? If I talk to her again and we get back to where we were a couple of months ago, would I go through with it in terms of, putting down some sort of finalization process? Probably so. And at that point, it doesn't matter if sisters are really listening, or sisters are willing to look into themselves and change. I've already set the ball in motion, right? So once again, I think it's very important that for people to take things more seriously, man. Like, this isn't a game of who's right and who's wrong, because the second we finalize shit, there's no going back. There's no, okay, I see, okay, you don't need to marry her anymore, take the ring off of Becky's finger, I see what you're doing, don't move in with her, cancel the wedding date and come back to me, I get you now. That's not how it works. Y'all take it easy. God bless.